Can I vent to you real quick?
Please, absolutely, go ahead.
Man, I'm just really frustrated with how people are talking about my guy Bryce Young. Like the NFL uploaded the clip. I don't know if you've seen it, but it had like highlights from his game against LSU. And I know you saw the pocket presence, the elite pocket presence that not too many NFL prospects have, especially at 5'10, 204. And yet
Mm.
people are talking about some, man, this is nice, but this college, he ain't gonna do that in the NFL. Like, come on, man. Like, elite pocket presence is something that you're either born with or you're not. And then you got people saying, oh, he plays for Alabama, like he's throwing to the best receivers in the NFL. He isn't gonna have all that. And I'm like, bro, tell me that you haven't been watching Alabama football without telling me that you haven't been watching Alabama football, because for the last 2 years, these probably have been some of the worst Alabama teams that Nick Saban has had in pretty much his whole entire career as the head coach of Bama football after his first year. And you can even go back further to the year that they made it to the national championship. Nick Saban considered that a rebuilding year. I don't remember if you remember the week leading up to the SEC championship game, but most people thought that Georgia was going to blow out Alabama. Their offensive line had an awful performance the week before in the Iron Bowl against Auburn. I think that game went into 2 overtimes, and Bryce Young, being the clutch performer that he is, always rising to the occasion, was able to lead them on a game-winning drive to win the game. And then when you just look at how big of an impact he had his first year starting at Alabama, you just knew this dude was special. So to hear people constantly, try to find ways to nitpick this guy's game, like, I understand the size, but if you can look past that and you just look at the film, you would know that this guy is truly a generational quarterback. And if he was 6'5" or 6'6", we will hype this guy up as one of the greatest quarterback prospects since Andrew Luck. Let me know if I'm tripping.
Listen, brother, I have been defending Bryce Young religiously since July. Um, I fell in love with him the moment I even cut on his high school tape. I started watching him back in 2019, so I knew he was coming. And I heard he was going to Alabama. I was like, oh, okay. And then I heard Mac Jones beat him out, and I was confused. I was like, whatever. Then 2021 comes, his first game against Miami, he just shuts it down. Like, lights them up, lit up
First
the.
play, Jameson Williams. And I'm a Canes fan. I was just like, oh,
Hey,
I
the first drive, he had this you want to talk about pocket presence. He had this crazy sack avoidance against the edge from Miami, escapes to his right, throws a dart to John Mechie, who runs it in for like a 30-yard touchdown. Just beautiful. He's got beautiful awareness. His ability to throw the ball from anywhere on the field in any situation. I mean, I don't understand how you can have size concerns on a quarterback who's 5'10", but's played in the SEC and been hit by grown men every day of his career. You don't even remember the fact. You don't even count the fact that he gets hit by his own teammates every day, who are also grown men, who are also huge NFL type defensive linemen, and he runs away from them every Saturday, and he does it at a high level. And now his height is a concern, but he's been this height since 10th grade. I mean, it's just laughable to me. But I think what it comes down to with Bryce is, his pocket awareness is fantastic, but I think his mental paralysis. I think his ability to know when a blitz is coming, to know what coverages defenses are in. And if you notice on third down, whenever Bryce sees a blitz, it's never good. Like, you never tip your hand to Bryce when you're blitzing, because I promise to God, if you do, he's going to exploit you, and it might go for 6. So his mental processing is elite. His ability to make throws from anywhere is outstanding. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but that ball should be spinning like a spiral wherever it needs to get to. Um, his ability to run this year was actually very impressive to me. In the specific film session that we did at Film and Art, I detailed in it about how, people are going to say he's a bad athlete. And I'm like, where? I mean, the dude ran all the time this year. And I mean, he had to, because he was throwing to Trayshawn Holden, who nearly had as many drops as catches Jermaine Burton, who transferred from Georgia after winning a national championship, just do nothing for a year at Alabama. So it's a crazy situation to think about. We're trying, well, not we, but the national media is trying to bear down this kid for being 5'10", when in reality, the only issue he's ever had in his entire career as a deficiency in a scouting report has probably been his weight. And he just put on weight to be 204 pounds and lit up his pro day yesterday. So if we're talking about Bryce Young not being QB1, I don't know what we're talking about, because that conversation in my world, in my opinion, doesn't exist.
Yeah, man, it's like CJ Stroud is a dog. We're going to get into him a little bit later. We're going to get into that debate. But it's just like, if you're doubting Bryce Young because you don't know if he's going to be able to hold up for 10 to 15 years, you don't know about the durability, that's understandable. We look at Tua, we see smaller quarterbacks that are smaller in size. Like Bryce Young, he doesn't have like the, I don't want to call him thick, but he doesn't have like the built physique that a Kyler Murray has or Russell Wilson has. But this guy is very smart. He doesn't take a lot of huge hits. He knows how to fall down. And this dude is a way better athlete. Like, if people are questioning his ability to move around, just look at the fact that how he extends plays. And I think that a lot of people a lot of people have what I like to call the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen syndrome. So if you're not having 60, 50-yard rushing touchdowns at quarterback, people question your mobility. But it's like there's different kinds of mobility. You have home run hitters, and then you have guys who can extend plays, move around, buy time, pick up yards with their legs. And Bryce Young, like, I'm pretty sure he has some speed. Did he run the 40 at his pro day?
He did not run the 40 his pro day, but like I said on our film session on our channel, I believe he would have ran a 4.5. I mean, on tape, the dude looks pretty fast. So I'm not worried about Bryson athlete at all. I mean, this is a guy who ran away from multiple defenders in the SEC this year alone, and you don't just do that if you're not a good athlete. It's funny to me how people question Bryce's athleticism, but they're quiet as a church mouse on CJ Stroud's, but we'll get into that later. So,
and when I look at Bryce Young, I see somebody who has really good accuracy, fantastic ball placement, even though I like CJ Stroud's ball placement over Bryce Young, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I just really can't understand why people are so low or like have so many questions about Bryce Young. Some people think that he could potentially fall in the draft. And I'm gonna just say this, bro. If you take CJ Stroud over Bryce Young, okay, I'm not gonna harp on that. But if you take anybody other than CJ Stroud over Bryce Young, like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, like please, you might as well just go ahead and quit, because you probably should be out of a job. Even though I am rooting for my guy Anthony Richardson to succeed, I do think in the right situation he can thrive. Similar to Will Levis, it's all about where you go, proper coaching, all that stuff. I just feel like when you're talking about a quarterback who pretty much is close to not being, I won't say not being a bust, but if you're looking at a quarterback who you could look at and say, yeah, I know that he's not going to be a bust, I know without a doubt that he's going to succeed, it's Bryce Young and potentially CJ Stroud. And then all the other quarterbacks, you know, there's some wild cards out there. But when you look at Bryce Young, I think he probably has to be one of the safest options in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. The way we describe it in this NFL scouting community is high floor guys and high ceiling guys. And when you look at Bryce Young's floor, it's higher than any other quarterback in the class. Something that I think about is who could go to the Houston Texans and actually not die? You know, I don't think Anthony Richardson can go to the Texans and not die. I mean, first of all, in my humble opinion, Anthony Richardson isn't ready to play today already. Will Levis, no, there's no option. He will die in Houston. Sorry, I don't like Mayo, man. I don't like him. His film session's coming out tomorrow, and I'm dreading it because it's like I'm really gonna have to destroy that man on camera like that. But it is what it is. We'll talk about him later. He's just not good. Stroud, I think, could have success, but I think at the end of the day, his lack of athleticism and he's a quarterback that really, really needs weapons around him. And it's not a bad thing, but it's just a fact. I think you could send Bryce to Houston. I think he'd be just fine. I mean, he thrived in chaos at Alabama, one of the most prestigious programs in America. Always has talent, even if the talent doesn't play up to their potential. So I think you could send Bryce to Houston and he'd be fine, which in my humble opinion means that he has the higher floor than any quarterback in his class. Now, when you talk about ceilings, obviously Anthony Richardson has the highest ceiling because of his athleticism, because of his arm strength. He probably got the biggest arm in the class. But when it comes to ceiling and floors, you have to be very, very careful because just because somebody has a really high ceiling does not mean they're going to reach it. Just because somebody has a really, really high floor doesn't mean you settle. So that's the delicate game that scouts and GMs and evaluators have to play. It's how do you correlate, your floor versus your ceiling? Because theoretically, Bryce's ceiling isn't much higher than his floor. But the problem is the solution is his ceiling is his floor is so high that it really doesn't even matter. Because at the end of the day, if you take Bryce Young, you know exactly what you're getting. If you take CJ Stroud, you definitely know exactly what you're getting. So it's all about risk versus reward. And I think that Bryce is definitely a reward that is worth the risk of him being 204 pounds and 5'10".